What's up, guys? Steven here from Powell's Power Ups. I'm sending one of the Slayers I have off to Austin to have it painted and weathered and get it all dressed up nicely for when I sell it. So this will be one that I sell. But I'm gonna use this video for him to show him how to disassemble and reassemble the lightsaber into its, several pieces. And figured I'll shoot a video and so everyone can see how to do it. So this is a more in-depth video than I did with the unboxing. We're actually gonna break it down. All right, so let's start with the hilt by taking it apart in the middle, and we'll start with the lower section. So the lower handle here, the handle just kind of threads off. So we'll start with that one. We'll do this upper section later. So first thing you can do that's pretty easy is get yourself a pickle jar opener so that you can take this pommel off. They get kind of stuck on there, as you can tell from the sound of the threading. They're not greased up yet. So if you get a pickle jar opener, and it's easier to take this off instead of using tools because you don't want to scratch it. So that'll help you get a good grip on there just to kind of get it loose. And then you should be able to finish taking it out the rest of the way with your hands. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and break this down even further because I'm sure Austin will want to paint this lower engine and do some stuff with it. So the little wheel right here with the sound venting holes just kind of screws off, okay? Down inside of that hole is a little, Phillips head screw. When you loosen it, it allows the red pommel to come off, okay? So you got this one little screw right here. Yeah, that holds it on. And then that reveals two smaller screws on the bottom side, and if you want, you can disassemble this lower engine even more. So take out one screw, take out the other screw. These are really tiny, and then you can lift up this metal piece right here, right, which allows that to come off. And then if you want, you can take out these. There's two on each side. They kind of just fall out. So that right there is full disassembly of the lower engine / pommel section. Zoom in on that for you. Okay, so there's all that. Now let's continue on. I'm gonna put it back together. Okay, so you get those four little pins in there, and then you set this piece down on top, across the top there. Just give it a little wiggle till you get all those little legs in the little holes, 3 on each side. Then you can drop in your little screws, screw it back on. Now these are real tiny screws, so you don't want to over tighten them because you can easily strip them if you're not careful. Once you get those on, you can go back to the big screw. Gonna kind of set it on your screwdriver here. We're gonna feed it up and through, and then we're gonna screw the red pommel back on. So you can kind of adjust this, wherever you want it to be, and then tighten down the screw. So you don't want to strip that one either, but you do want to get it tight. And then you want to screw back on this piece. So there's the pummel. That's full disassembly and assembly. Now we'll move on to the handle section here. We can start by taking off the belt clip. Pretty simple. 2 little screws that hold it in. You have the gold belt clip piece on top and a black piece, kind of lifter piece, a riser pad underneath, so that it sits up elevated. So you got those, and then this little piece. So that comes off, okay? Next, this disassembles even further. You'll need a little screwdriver or a pick or something, and if you look down through the top here, there's a hole, like a nice circle hole, and if you push through it, pushes this little tab out, okay, which actually has sticky stuff on the bottom of it to help stick it back on when you're done, so don't peel that off. And what you do is, the reason why you take that off, that hole gives you access to a little tiny Phillips screw on the other side, which is this rail. There's 3 screws in it, okay? So you also need to get this tab right here. So there's this one. So I like to I have this little pick, like with a little kind of hook on it. So I'm gonna find that hole, which is this one right here. And I just go in with my pick and I just kind of push up on it, just like that. See, this one actually came out real easy, which allows me to take off that tab. Also, again, this one has a little sticky piece on the back, so keep that so you can stick it back on. And then these 2 holes give you, access to some Phillips screws that are down in there. So it helps if you got a little extension of some kind, like this. Actually, this one's too big around. What did I have to use last time? Oh yeah, you need kind of a long, skinny one. So I think last time I just used one of these, because I don't have any like really long, thin ones. Or maybe it was my drill too that I used. Because did that fit? Yeah, that one fits. So this is like a jeweler's set right here. Man, half the work with these lightsabers, even for when you're doing the installs and trying to plan how to do 3D print your chassis and stuff for the inside, half the problem, what takes so much time and effort, is learning all the assembly and disassembly of it. Alright, so we're going to unscrew that top first one. There's the little screw right there. So they're tiny screws, just like that was in the, just like the ones that was in the pummel. So you don't want to strip them. Now we're going for the next one, which is right here. Oop. You can look down inside as you're doing it. So Austin, if you're watching this, which you should be, I don't think you necessarily need to take this rail off like you see me doing. I'm just doing it as part of the video. But if you do, that allows these 2 pieces to come apart. So Austin, if you want to paint these separate, that's what you got to do. And then to fully take that rail off, if you want to take that rail off completely, there's one more screw right here at the top where the pummel threads in. So you just take out that last screw, 1, 2, 3 tiny little ones, and there you have it, full disassembly of the lower section. Now these tabs, I'm sure each and every single one of them is probably stuck on, but honestly it's going to be a pain. I don't know if they're stuck on or glued on or what, but you cannot push them out from the inside actually. So, if you try taking them off, you're going to risk scratching the hilt. So I wouldn't recommend that. So if you paint this together, don't forget to maybe, stick this tab on to paint it if you're trying to match it, But also you do need to be able to get that off. Or you could just leave the whole bottom of it assembled, Depends on how detailed you want to get. Alright, so now putting it back together, we'll start with the rail again. There's a little notch there, a little cutout notch, and that's where this goes right here, like that. I'm going to take one of those tiny screws It helps, by the way, if your little screwdriver is magnetized. Helps the screw kind of stick to it on the end, like so. That way you can use just one hand to hold it. Come on now. Because these are tiny screws, you want to take your time. You don't want to strip them, but you do want to get them tight so that you don't have anything loose and wiggling. Okay, so there's that. Now, what I like to do, which I've done on one of them already, one that's not being painted, I put just a little drop of E6000 in all of those grooves, because even with the screws on, there was still a little wiggle and play, and I wanted that to be gone. So you slide that back on like that. Now you get your other 2 screws. We're going to go through those holes here and screw these screws back in on the inside. Again, while you're doing this, you're just looking down in through the handle, making sure everything's lined up. Don't force anything in, just play around with it till it goes in just right. So, Austin, if you wanted to, man, if you wanted to make this real easy, you know, I wouldn't disassemble it. I mean, I understand probably taking off the pommel to do the engine, but as far as this lower handle, it might be easiest. So these are sticky, remember? They just stick back on. It might be easiest just to paint this like whole, like that. Obviously, you probably want to take off the belt clip, or you can leave it on. I don't know. You're the man. I'm going to let go at it, so whatever you feel is best. So let's put the belt clip back on. We're just going to lay this here. Belt clip goes back on top. We need these. Put those in there. Don't strip those. They strip really easy. Alright, so there's the full disassembly and reassembly of the lower handle. Now, just to complete all that, we'll put the pommel back in. And again, this goes in and out easiest if you're just using a pickle jar opener. So there is full assembly and disassembly of the lower handle section of the CC Sabers Slayer. So now we're going to move on and we're going to do the upper section, right? So set that aside. First thing we got to do is we're going to remove the blade plug. So let me get that. Little set screw is right here. One tiny one. You don't have to take it all the way out. You just have to loosen it so that your blade plug comes apart. Austin, now I think this is actually stainless steel tip on here, so if you want to heat stain that tip, that would be cool. And also this, it unscrews from the plastic so you won't melt this. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's totally steel right there. So you could screw that back on. So there's assembly and disassembly of the blade plug. All right, moving on. So next, to break all of this down, first, this one took me a while to figure out, but this little piece right here with the ribs on it, you just get underneath it with your fingernail and it comes up and off. You can actually just kind of twist it a little. You got to get underneath it with your fingernail and it'll lift up and off. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt. Try not to use tools because you don't want to scratch any of the pieces, but under the bottom is where you can get it. Get your fingernails under there and you'll see it lift up. Bam. Now it has a sticky piece on the bottom of it just like those others, but it also has like a magnet, so I think it was supposed to magnetize on there. So when I build mine, I'm going to do magnets because this magnet is not magnetizing, so that's probably why they added the sticky strip. But anyway, for disassembly, that's the first thing you got to do is get that off. Next, you're going to need your Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to take out these 2 screws right here. And they're pretty long. So that will allow this whole piece to fully come off. So I'm just going to leave the 2 screws there like that. And you'll notice it's a little loose now, right? So what that does is it allows you to slide this down, like at a downward angle. Yeah, you just play with it, get it, the blue rubber buttons loose, but it allows you to slide it down. So look, you can reveal this hole right there because there's a screw on the other side of it. So again, you're going to need a nice long screwdriver so you can reach through there. And you're going to unscrew the screw on the inside down through here in the emitter section. That will allow, there's the screw, that will allow this little greebly right here to come off. And then that will allow you to fully slide up and off, careful as you do it, this whole shell portion up here, which is pretty much one solid piece with the exception of the blue buttons that are in there, right? So actually, I'm not even sure how to get that on or off. I know you're probably not going to want to paint the blue buttons. Let me see if I take it up and out, if it'll come out. It probably won't, because there's not a screw on the inside of there, but I can feel that it is a separate piece. So you just might have to tape over the blue, or you can weather them, I don't care. But try not to, Austin, try not to paint over the blue buttons too much, because the PCB that comes with this for the buttons has LEDs on it. And these little blue buttons are going to be illuminated, so I don't want them covered too much so that light will still shine through them. And then the rest of this piece is pretty much solid, except for, see how this gribbly came off? This one does too. If you just turn it around, you'll see there is another screw on the inside there. All these screws are pretty tight too, so I'm actually pretty impressed with CC Sabers going through and really tightening all this stuff up. Now you can notice, make note here, that the screw for this one is much, much shorter than the one for the other side, because the fit piece is a lot thinner. So there's that. Now we'll continue on the core section here. Okay. We can take off this upper emitter off just by, you know, unscrewing the screws here on the top. I like this screwdriver better. I can grip it more. So we'll take out, I think there's 3. These do strip really easy, so be careful. Make sure you got a good grip with them. 1, 2, 3, and then the emitter will come up and off of the crystal chamber. That doesn't break down any further. And now we want to get off the lower section. So what you'll actually do is get your little screwdriver. You'll unscrew the 2 screws where the metal ring thing is. You'll undo, I think it's this one. There's a little tiny screw, and you can undo this one. I like that they put screws on here, because if you wanted to change the direction of those vents, you could. But that comes off. Okay. Next, you can take off this portion. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll do these 3 next. 1, 2, 3 on the lower end, just like the upper end for the emitter. One, 2. Now you'll notice these 3 screws on the bottom end of the crystal chamber are a different length and size and shape compared to the ones for the upper So those are for the emitter. These are for the lower portion. Probably don't want to get them backwards. Just dropped my screwdriver. So then this comes apart, right? So we'll do the crystal chamber next, and then you can thread off this ring here. It just kind of screws on. So if you want to take that off so that you can weather that section, that fully disassembles. So there's all that. There's all that. As you can see, this thing breaks down pretty far, and I'm still going. Next, we're going to the crystal chamber itself, okay? So you got two little flathead screws up here, right? You gotta take both of those out. So let me get a little flathead screw attachment. I hate flatheads, but you always got to be real careful with them because you can strip them real easy. So you take that off, right? Set it aside, and then you take the big one off. You'll notice once you do this, it kind of unlocks the crystal chamber. The inner one will slide out. Just give it a little wiggle there. Okay, so this is all one solid piece right here, which already kind of has some weathering on it, and I like the metal color, so Austin, maybe please don't weather this too much. And then, I guess for weathering, Austin, while I'm doing this, I guess mostly for the weathering, I'm looking for weathering of the black. You know, making that look weathered, especially around like the damaged areas here, or maybe around like the damaged areas here, which aren't really damaged looking, but yeah, do your thing. Anyway, sorry. So here's your crystal chamber. So this actually disassembles further too. I'm gonna show you how. First, you're gonna need like this little, where'd you go? Little Allen wrench here. There's little set screws down inside there. You just want to loosen that one, and there's one opposite, or it's below that. And if you do those set screws, it allows the crystals to come up and out. But to get those two apart, you need to do these Phillips head screws here. These little channels here, these little rails, they hold these two parts of the crystal chamber together, but they're also your wire channels for your wires to run from your emitters down to your chassis. So that allows this bottom section, watch this, it's going to come apart now. Come on now, don't mess with me on camera. Alright, see the crystal chamber disassemble. So these little legs, there's just little, pieces that go in the holes there. And then the crystal, because we loosened that set screw inside of here, there's a set screw inside of here, inside of this hole, and that allows this to come up and out. But these are the crystals. Okay, and then if you want to, this is just a screw and it unthreads. So as you can see, this thing disassembles pretty far. Is all that on camera? Yeah, let's take a look. So there's all your pieces. Like I said, this stuff disassembles pretty far. All right, so CC Sabers fully disassembled upper section. Now we're gonna put it back together. And the reason why I showed you this is because maybe you want different crystals in here. Maybe instead of two, maybe you want a solid one, so you could totally change it out. When you get it from CC Sabers, the ones that are in here are glued in, which I'm pretty sure is just hot glue. So it was because I already redid another one, and this stuff comes out pretty easy. But for this one, I'm actually gonna leave it alone. That one's just a little tiny chipped. Anyway, so to put it back together, first I'm gonna start with the crystal on the bottom. I'm just gonna set it down inside all the way. And then I'm gonna tighten down the little set screw that holds it in place, which is right inside here. Okay, and then I'm also gonna thread in this little greebly, this little crystal chamber accent. Okay, then I'm gonna put in my two little legs like that. They just sit in there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and prepare the top end by dropping in, or first I'll just screw in this little accent here. Make sure it's nice and tight. Then I'll drop in this one. Then I'll tighten down the set screw that holds it in place right here. Okay, then I'm gonna put this top on, which is gonna take some wiggling, but you'll get it. Be patient, make sure everything's lined up. Just like that. Then I'm gonna screw these two screws back in. And that will complete the inner core section of the crystal chamber. Now to put it back inside of the outer core, you know, just flip it whichever way you want. We're just gonna slide it back up inside of there. And we're gonna line up these holes. Actually, we're gonna line up this big hole right here. Yeah, this big one. That's the one you wanna line up. This big flathead screw we took out. And that's the one we're gonna use to tighten it down and put it back in. Might need a bigger one. Okay, so that one's in. Now we'll do the little one. So you're gonna need this little tab to set right inside of there. Then you're gonna need the pretty little greebly screw. Screw that back on. And then you've fully reassembled the crystal chamber. So there, that's all back together now, looking good. It's kind of already got some weathering on it, so maybe not too much weathering on this, Austin, please, because I want it to still be pretty shiny as far as the metal is concerned. But you can add some stuff to it. I'll let you do your thing. I keep telling you what to do and then saying, I'll let you do your thing. Anyway, so now that you can see here, we got it fully assembled, you can see the channels for your wires. On the inside there. All right, next we're going to begin putting it back together. We're gonna start with our little ring here. We're just gonna thread that back on. Okay. We're gonna slide it up into the bottom of the crystal chamber there. You want this hole to be where the crystal chamber is, because that's where this piece goes. Okay, and then you know you need your 3 holes to line up. So that would be wrong. This would be right. Yeah, that would be wrong. This would be right here. Where is it? Right here. That's where we want it. So we're gonna take our 3 little screws. Screw those back in. 1, 2. Again, don't over tighten these because you don't want to strip them. 3. So there's that. Next, if you want, you can put on this little rail. If you wanted to switch directions, you know, depending on which way your LEDs are going, you could. I'm going to leave it the original way. So it just has two little screws on the outside of it. Now what I'm gonna do, just because I'm sure people are wondering, you know, how they're gonna do a chassis for this, I'm gonna have one 3D printed piece that's actually gonna sit in the top here, okay? It's gonna have the stock connector for the blade on the top end of it. On the bottom end, it's gonna have a NeoPixel LED for the crystal facing down. So there'll be one 3D printed piece in there. Then I'm gonna do another 3D printed piece in this bottom section here with an LED strip there, just a short one, I think 4 or 5 pixels, and then an LED in the bottom crystal. And then there's gonna be there's gonna be a chassis. So I'm actually gonna have a 3D printed piece here, number 1, 3D printed piece here is number 2. Like for the switches and stuff too. And then the wires will just run down into the chassis, which will be a fixed chassis, which will be the third 3D printed piece. I think when I originally made the video, I said I was gonna do 21700 battery, but it was actually too big and long to fit down in here. I'm actually gonna do an 18650, turns out. But I can still have room for a 28mm speaker, so I'm pretty excited about that. So we got this on, now we're gonna put on the top section. You want, let me see here. Yeah, you want the you want that square lined up with this square with that square lined up, and you want this hole and that hole lined up. So that's when you do this with the crystal chamber facing up, you want this hole facing up. And then we're going to drop in our screws for the emitter. One, two, three, okay, so that's pretty much that core section done. Now we're gonna start to put back together you know, this shell so we can slide it down. You're gonna start with the thinnest one, which is just gonna kind of sit on that, it's just gonna kind of sit here like that. Okay, you're gonna take the really shallow screw, and that's what's going to be used to hold it in. Now once I fully build, and it's after this has been painted, once I fully build this, I'm probably going to use a lot of Loctite on all these little screws, just to make sure as I'm playing with this thing in the future, it doesn't, you know, come apart and loose on me, because there's actually a lot of little screws in this. Anyway, so there's that's fully assembled. The greeblies last. So now we're just going to take the buttons, slide it over that crack right there. So when you go down, you're just going to slide straight down, line up this section here with those buttons right there. But you're going to go down just enough to expose that hole again, so you can put this greebly on the other side, which I can't remember which way it goes. I think it goes up like that. Yeah. So it goes like that. Does that make sense? So I like to hold it on with one finger, the other hand, and I'm gonna go down in there, look through the emitter, screw it on. Oh, I didn't get a long enough one. Let me try this one. This thing is kicking my butt. There we go. So look through the emitter, make sure I get that one tight. Then slide it back up, which I'm so scared to do. I can hear it like scraping on the inside. Anyway, once it gets all the way on though, it looks good. So there's that, it all looks good now. So now you got your holes lined up for this piece, which we'll put back on. Okay, Phillips head again. Screw those down. So once I get around to fully installing this, I'll probably replace the magnets that are in here. I have some real thin, small ones that I'll probably use to make this next piece just magnetize on. Anyway, so that just sticks on. Give it a little squeeze. And there it is. That was full disassembly and reassembly of the upper section of the CC Sabers Slayer. Fully reassemble, thread the handle back on, and it is ready to rock. So thank you for watching. Hopefully that helps you guys, learn how to fully disassemble and assemble your CC Sabers Slayer lightsaber. Austin, I'm super excited about you painting this thing. If you have one of these and you're thinking about getting it weathered, I would definitely suggest Austin of Astoria. He does amazing, prop work and paint work, and he lives out in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. He's pretty close to me. I'm actually from Cape Girardeau, where he's from. I was born there, Austin. But anyway, I'm gonna send it to you, man. Weather it up for me. Please make it look good. I'll probably end up selling it, so it's kind of gonna be like a little collab thing, me installing it and you painting it. Anyway, there it is. CC Sabers Slayer, full disassembly and reassembly. May the force be with you.